Every time I open up my social media feeds and see that another trans person has been killed, my heart breaks. Krista Lee Steele Nudslian, 42, was found dead in her North Adams, Massachusetts home on January 5, 2018. Steele Nudslian organized and produced the Miss Trans New England pageant and was well loved and known by many in the local and national trans community. Vicky Gutierrez, 33, transgender woman from Honduras, was stabbed and had her body set on fire inside her Los Angeles home on January 10, 2018. Friends described her as a young, trans, Latina immigrant woman whose warm smile would give anyone comfort. Celine Walker, 36, was fatally shot in a hotel room in Jacksonville, Florida on February 4, 2018. Investigators are still looking for a suspect in her death. Tanya Harvey, 35, was fatally shot on February 6, 2018 in Buffalo, New York. A friend of Harvey's expressed her condolences on Facebook, saying, "I knew her since I started transitioning. She was so sweet and loving." Police have confirmed they're treating the incident as a possible hate crime. Zachariah Fry, 2018, went missing in New Mexico in January 2018. Her body was found 40 miles outside of Albuquerque on February 19, 2018. Fry's loved ones shared condolences on Facebook, with one saying, "You were my older sister. You took care of me and loved me like family. I'll forever love you. I'm sorry." Felicia Mitchell, 45, was shot and killed outside her Cleveland, Ohio home on February 23, 2018. Her longtime partner Shane Mitchell described her as funny and kind and said everyone loved her. Amia Tyree Berryman, 45, was fatally shot at a motel in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on March 26, 2019. Few details are known about the crime, and police report they have no suspects or persons of interest at this time. Sasha Well, 2019, a transgender woman of color, was fatally shot on April 1, 2018 in Chesterfield County, South Carolina. Donovan Dunlap, a friend of Wall's, expressed condolences on Facebook, writing, "I will miss you, my beautiful sister. I cannot sleep. I hope they find who did this." Carla Patricia Flores Pavon, 26, was found choked to death in her Dallas, Texas apartment on May 9, 2018. A friend posted on her Facebook page, "It hurts a lot. You were a good-hearted person. Sister, fly high. We will remember you with love. Your beautiful smile will stay with us." Dana Martin, 31, a black transgender woman, was fatally shot in Montgomery, Alabama on January 6, 2019. She was found in her vehicle in a roadside ditch and pronounced dead at the scene. Daranacia Duncan Boyd, an Alabama-based trans advocate, said she was a person loved by many. Ashanti Carmen, 27, a black transgender woman, was fatally shot in Prince George County, Maryland on March 30th, 2019. Carmen's fiancé Philip Williams said, "Until I leave this earth, I'm going to continue loving her in my heart, body, and soul. She did not deserve to leave the earth so early, especially in the way that she went out." Claire Legato, 21, a black transgender woman, was fatally shot in Cleveland on April 15th, 2019. Friends and family took to social media to mourn Legato's death, remembering her as someone who was full of life. Paris Carmen, 20, a black transgender woman, was among 3 people killed in an anti-LGBT shooting at a home in Detroit on May 25, 2019. Alunte Davis, 21, and Timothy Blanchard, 20, both gay men, were also killed in the shooting. 2 other victims were injured. I could go on forever with stories like this. I fear for my trans and gender nonconforming friends and family. The biggest question I have when I see these headlines is why? Why does this keep happening? Since 2013, more than 130 transgender and non-binary individuals have been killed in the United States. It's hard to get an exact number of transgender people murdered each year because the media doesn't always state that the victim was transgender and frequently misgenders or misnames the victim. In 2015, at least 21 transgender people were murdered, most by violent means, causing transgender activist Laverne Cox to declare a transgender state of emergency. In 2017, at least 29 transgender people were murdered in the United States, the most ever recorded. In 2018, at least 26 transgender people were murdered. So far in 2019, at least 12 transgender people have been murdered, and we're only halfway through the year. While many murders were directly motivated by anti-trans sentiment, others were put at risk of being murdered in other ways, such as homelessness, which transgender people are 5 times more likely to experience at some point in their life than the average American. Most transgender people who are murdered are people of color. Women of color, in fact. The intersections of racism, sexism, transphobia, and homophobia all combine to make access to employment, housing, education, and healthcare more difficult, further putting them at risk. Aboriginal transgender people are 3 times more likely to be murdered than the average Aboriginal person. The average Aboriginal person is already 6 times more likely to be murdered than non-Aboriginal people, which means transgender Native people are 18 times more likely to be murdered than the average non-Native cisgender person. 18 times more likely. A 2016 survey from the Williams Institute estimated that transgender people make up approximately 0.6% of the U.S. population. On a state level, transgender people make up less than 3% of each state's population. That's the biggest. The biggest one was Washington, D.C., which isn't really a state, but less than 3%. If there's so few transgender people in the United States, why are so many of them being killed? Why do we hear about this so often? And how do we stop it from continuing? National Center for Transgender Equality conducted a survey in 2015 with more than 27,000 adult respondents from across the United States and its territories. It looked at the experiences of transgender people in education, employment, family life, health, housing, and interactions with the criminal justice system. 26% of transgender people reported being physically assaulted at some point in their life. 92% of these people who reported their experience of physical assault had experienced the first assault at or before the age of 18. Of those assaulted as children, 70% dropped out of school out of fear of continued violence. Homicide is already a leading cause of death among 15 to 24-year-olds in North America after accidental death and suicide. People with lower incomes are statistically more likely to be victims of violent crime. Lack of education can severely limit income potential and compounds the risks that transgender people already face just from existing. 10% of survey respondents had experienced violence from a family member because they were transgender. Transgender women are 1.6 times more likely to experience physical violence than the average American citizen. The average person in the United States has a 1 in 6,100 chance of being murdered each year. In 2017, there were 17,284 murders, at least 29 of which were transgender people. In spite of physical danger, hatred, and discrimination, transgender and non-binary individuals continue to live bravely and overcome the challenges society throws at them. There isn't one single cause behind why transgender people are murdered, but surely improving access to housing, healthcare, education, and employment will improve the odds for some of society's most disadvantaged people. We must address the root causes of violence to make our community safe for everyone. It is not enough to grieve the loss of these murdered people. We have to honor their memories with action. So what can you do? Here are 5 suggestions from the Human Rights Campaign. Number 1, educate family members and friends about transgender inclusion. 2, support pro-equality politicians. 3, support and elevate transgender voices in media. 4, combat misinformation about transgender people in schools. 5, include transgender issues in conversations about sexual assault. My sources for this research were Amnesty International, USATranssurvey.org, transequality.org, The Economist, Human Rights Campaign, Statistics Canada, Wikipedia, and Statista.com. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and please subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye.